Here's what's cooking on today's Sports Stove podcast. We are covering all the madness of March. We're also going to talk NFL and all the offseason moves, a little Major League Baseball and all that's going on there as well. That and more. That's what's cooking on today's Sports Stove podcast.
From Belly Up Sports and the Belly Up Podcast Network, you're listening to the Sports Stove Podcast with your host, Vince Stover.
Hey, good looking, what you got cooking? How's about cooking something up in me?
Welcome into an all-new edition of the Sports Stove podcast. And joining me as he usually does, my dad, Dale Stover. Dad, how you doing?
And I don't know, it's madness going on around, isn't it? I'm telling you, it's all we hoped the tournament would be.
Well, I guess. Yeah, being here in Lexington, I don't know it's what we hoped it would be, but it is a interesting weekend here in Lexington as the men bowed out in the first evening of the tournament against St. Peter's. Murray State loses to the same St. Peter's team. They're a Kentucky team. And even the ladies lost to Princeton in the first round of the girls tournament too. So it is an odd and somber feeling around the area here at the very least. And we didn't have a Friday show this week due to schedules and different things. But, there's plenty to talk about. And you're talking about the tournament. Let's start with Kentucky. Kentucky, a 2 seed, losing to the 15 seed St. Peter's, and it wasn't on a buzzer beater. St. Peter's beat them by 6, but the whole last couple of minutes, it was like, sure enough, Kentucky's going to lose this game. And I'm obviously here close to it. What's the outside world thinking about the Kentucky loss?
Well, a little bit that I heard this week was a lot kind of what you said. What is Coach Cal's philosophy? Is it trying to win championships, or does he just hang his hat on getting a lot of guys in the NBA? And I've heard you, talk about that before. So I think that's some of the question that comes up. That one's probably the one. A couple of them really hit people's brackets, but probably that one because a lot of people had them going definitely Final Four, some winning the championship. I did, and others. So it resounded a lot, I think, around the country because they were pretty highly regarded this year.
Yeah, there is a lot of disgust in Lexington over Coach Cal and his lack of winning championships. He's won one in his time in Kentucky. He's made a few Final Fours. He's missed the tournament once or twice. I know once for sure. I'm trying to think. I think just once, but that was in the Narlands Noel year. Should they fire him? I don't know, because who are they going to replace him with? I'm not sure if there's a coach out there right now that is just the obvious. Yeah, if we could go get him, but there has to be changes. I mean, you cannot continue to run the program the way he's run it because it's not working. You can't have a year like this year where you have all the talent in the world and you cannot pull off a first round win against St. Peter's, the Peacocks. You can't lose to the Peacocks. It's just something you can't do. And Cal did lose. The plan is for him to be back next year, which makes sense. Like I said, who will he lose this year? What players will come back? That's a big question as well. There is potential now that Kenny Payne gets hired in Louisville that he could maybe steal a couple of players that he recruited to Kentucky. But it looks like, generally speaking, they're not going to lose as much as maybe they have in the past. If they can get Oscar Tshiebwe to come back, which it sounds like he's got some big money ready for next year if he stays through the NIL deals, and that might encourage him to stick around for another year. I mean, if Oscar Tshiebwe wasn't on the floor the other night, it would have been a blowout by St. Peter's. Tshiebwe was the only good thing happening for Kentucky. And so it'll be interesting to see kind of how all that shakes out and what comes back. But it's disappointing. There was a big thought of, Kentucky and Murray State going to play in the second round in state. It's going to be awesome. Everybody was going to be, cheering for Kentucky, but also excited for Murray State and all that kind of stuff. and it ends up it's St. Peter's versus Murray State, and St. Peter's wins that game too. So they are the official Cinderella of the year this year. How much further do you think St. Peter's can go?
Well, I mean, it's really hard to say because, you wouldn't think they would be where they're at right now. So depending on who they play, I was thinking about that today. I don't know in college basketball if we've hardly had a Cinderella that has really gone all the way. There has been a few teams that were a surprise, but I'm trying to think if there's a real small school like this. It's gone a long ways. I guess Florida Gulf Coast a couple of years ago went a ways. But this is really quite the story. Now, I don't know if they'll go any further or not. It looks like they're really well coached. They have a really good game plan of who they're going to play. And if that's the case, then hey, if you can get hot, hit your shots, and can outcoach the other team, there may be a chance. I'm sure they've gone further than I know they said, well, they didn't come to lose, but I don't know that they would have expected to be in the Sweet 16. But again, they can play. There's no pressure on them. They can play and play loose. So it'll be very interesting to see if they do go any further. Don't know that they will.
Yeah. What makes things worse for Kentucky, and we're recording this on Sunday afternoon, so there's still games to be played, so we don't know the outcomes of all the games. What makes it worse for Kentucky is that if Texas and UCLA are playing in the Elite Eight, there's Kentucky transfers on both of those teams. Johnny Juzang, who never played sparingly at Kentucky, is trying to make his second straight trip to the Final Four with UCLA. Texas, they get Askew, who was the point guard last year. He did play at Kentucky. I really wanted him to stay. I thought he was going to be much better this year. He's on Texas now, of course, but we don't know the Texas-Purdue outcome yet. UCLA will be facing off against North Carolina. That East bracket busted everybody, right? You got Baylor, who's already out, the number 1 seed.
Yep.
You've got St. Mary's, who a lot of people were in on, lost to UCLA, and of course Kentucky being out as well. North Carolina, legit. Are they going to make a run here? They beat Duke towards the end of the season. Now here we sit. They face UCLA next to go to the Elite Eight.
The way they're playing, I mean, they could be hard to beat. Like I said, I didn't think they'd done all that well this year, and I remember the Duke game there at the end, and you thought, wow, they really played well, and Duke should have been ready to play. And now in the tournament, they look good, and they obviously have some good players, no doubt about that. So they could make a run. They could very easily, I think, get to the Final Four.
Yeah, them and Michigan playing good ball at the right time, right? Michigan upsets. They upset. Who did they upset to begin with? Colorado State, and then they beat Tennessee in the second round, so they advanced to play Villanova, who's playing some decent basketball. I'm a little Michigan really surprises me. Honestly, I am very surprised by what they're doing so far. I did not think that mentally they would be in the right space to have a run, but it looks like they're going to make a run right now. Like I said, they'll face Villanova. Then you've got Houston, who got past Illinois. That's not surprising, in my opinion. And then we'll figure out. We don't know the winner yet as of this recording of Arizona TCU. Would assume Arizona wins, but you know what that does. So, any other teams beside Michigan and North Carolina that have surprised you so far?
I don't know about surprised me as far as teams that we had talked about who do look like they came to the tournament ready to play. Arkansas looks really good, and I think they're going to give Gonzaga all they can handle there. And Villanova, like you said, is playing some really good basketball. So I think they could make a move. As far as surprising, I think we've discussed the ones that were, the surprises there from that standpoint.
Yeah, Arkansas was going to run into Gonzaga, and Gonzaga's no pushover. They're completely different kinds of teams. Arkansas a little bit more defensive-minded than Gonzaga is. Gonzaga, of course, has some young superstars as well as some really savvy vets as well. So that'll be interesting to see how that one shakes out. Of course, again, recording this early, we don't have all the answers for the other teams that have advanced there as well. Houston, Dad, I picked Houston to beat Illinois in this bracket. I looked at the Ken Palm ratings, and they had Houston a good bit above Illinois in those, and so that kind of what ultimately drew me to Houston. Illinois, you're an Illinois fan. They didn't look great against Houston.
No, they played poorly. The Big Ten tournament, they played poor in that game. They didn't play good in the first game, but they did win, and they didn't. It just looks like they weren't ready to play or weren't focused. There was a couple players that played real well, but for some reason, I mean, you wouldn't think that would be the case. They just came out and weren't really on top of the game. They didn't shoot extremely well. And of course, in today's basketball, if you start missing a lot of threes and the other team's hitting a couple, you're in trouble. And that happened there. So, I was afraid going into today because they had not played well in their last two games. And Houston, by the way, looked very good, I thought, today. And they could cause some noise.
Two teams that have been ousted have lost their coach now. Mississippi State hires New Mexico State's head coach, and Florida went out and got San Francisco's head coach, who was a assistant under Bruce Pearl at Auburn. It's going to be interesting to see kind of the SEC has a lot of job openings right now, and you wonder if after each round a new coach gets hired as their team gets eliminated. Maybe St. Peter's coach gets a few offers here before it's all said and done as well. Looking at it right now, Dad, with who we know is in it, who's your pick going forward?
As far as winning the championship?
Yeah.
I would say, I had Arizona in the championship against Kentucky, so I'd have to probably still say Arizona, even though I think Villanova, I haven't seen Wisconsin play yet today. I'd like to see Wisconsin do well. And I said I think Arkansas is a hot team, but if I had to pick one today, I'd probably have to stay with Arizona, even though because they're one of the few top teams left.
Yeah, I had Gonzaga and Arizona in the finals, so I'm still safe as of this recording. Of course, Arizona plays tonight, and maybe when this comes out Monday morning, everybody will be going, TCU's still in, so we'll see how all that shakes out. At this point, I wouldn't be surprised. And Dad, we talked about it before. This tournament, there's so many options this year. It seems like there's not one dominant team. Pretty well spread out, greater opportunities this year, and having Baylor and Kentucky already out. As of this recording, all the other two seeds are still in. But, I mean, Tennessee's out, who we thought should have been seeded higher than 3. They get eliminated. So, I don't know. I think we're still up for plenty of good and exciting endings to this basketball tournament before it's all said and done at this point. Any other comments on the NCAA tournament?
No, we said it'd be wide open, and I would think the ratings are good because I think people will be more interested next weekend because of the teams. You're not saying, oh, well, so-and-so is going to win it, and it looks like, to me, it's more enjoyable. You're watching teams play and not necessarily one or two superstars at this point, even though there are some very good players and very good players left in the tournament. Team play, they're playing defense, they're rebounding. And of course the 3-point thing really makes it exciting, and any number of guys can hit it. So I think it'll continue to be fun for everybody to watch.
Yeah, and where you live north of Dayton, the coaching hire there too, Sean Miller makes his return to Xavier. After some issues at Arizona. Of course, now Arizona's a 1 seed, but Sean Miller, he's kind of got a bad rub to some degree with some of the things that he got fired for. But Xavier, I think it's a great hire. Obviously a good coach. So getting him back for the program should turn out to be pretty good, I would think, for Xavier. Are you hearing anything different up there, anything negative?
No, I think it'll be very positive with people up here. So, nope, I believe it's good.
All right, on to the NFL, and there has been plenty of news since our last program in the NFL. Let's start with Deshaun Watson. Deshaun Watson is facing a suspension still. I would assume anywhere from 4 to 6 games once everything gets said and done. But Cleveland gives up 5 draft picks for him. They get back Watson and a draft pick as well. They were told they were out of the running there for a while. It looked like Atlanta was going to be the landing spot. Next thing you know, the announcement comes, Watson to Cleveland's happening. Let's start with the football side of things. Where does Deshaun Watson, where can he take this Cleveland team to?
Well, I mean, this should be very good. I think he picked one of the teams where they have weapons and they have, like I said, of course, the fan base, I think will be very excited about it and is. And, I think he can be very successful. Cleveland last year was expected to do better than they did. Now they are in an interesting division, and you got Cincinnati that's really rolling and doing well now. But I think Watson, I think this was a good place for him to end up. It was kind of interesting, he got into, well, this team's out of the running and this team's out of the running, and then all of a sudden it opens back up. That's always kind of interesting. But I think Cleveland Cleveland's a good spot for him, and it's going to make for a very interesting team, no doubt about it. I think I'm right about this, but if he does, let's say he gets suspended for 4 games or 6 games, he can still be involved in the preseason and in training camp. Can he not? It's just suspended for those games.
I think so. Yeah, I think the suspension starts after preseason.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure. I'm trying to look real quick to see, because they got rid of receivers. They don't have the same receivers there. They got Amari Cooper, who they traded for, which obviously is the big one. I'm looking quickly through here. Donovan Peoples-Jones, Ryan Switzer, Landry got cut, so he's not there. So their roster, they still have some holes to fill, but of course we got the draft coming. They got David Njoku, the tight end. They lost Austin Hooper, cut Austin Hooper to make salary cap room. But they've got a good defense. They've got good running backs. They've got a decent offensive line. And then like I said, you add Amari Cooper to the mix as well. They also signed Jacoby Brissett as their backup quarterback too. So they've got an interesting squad there. And I've said it for a while now. I think Deshaun Watson's the top 3 quarterback in the NFL. But he hasn't played for a year, and he might not play for a few more weeks after the year starts as well. It'll be interesting to see exactly what they do. So
it is a deal where they need to win now because again they've given up a lot of draft picks.
Yeah.
So now I think they can do stuff with free agency, and that will help. But I think the fan base is going to expect big results in the next couple of years.
So there you go. Good word. Expect. Expectations change things for a program, and good and bad, I think, to some degree. Now the expectation is going to be incredibly high in Cleveland. Does that make it harder for the Browns, or does that help them, give them that sense that we're expected to do good, whereas they've had kind of a long history of doing bad?
I think it'll help them because I think they feel like they're headed in the right direction, and I think having Deshaun Watson is going to be a real uptick again. Part of it's going to be how many games will he be suspended, how many games, and then when the schedule comes out, who are those games that he's going to be suspended for? Is he going to be there for both Cincinnati games, or is he going to miss one of those? That'll be interesting from there. So there's definitely some things to be answered, but I think Cleveland fans will what I picked up around here, a lot of Cleveland fans also, and they've stayed very positive. They felt like things were headed in the right direction, and I assume they're going to be happy with this move away from Mayfield.
All right, Baker Mayfield. Not a whole lot of quarterback jobs open at the moment. You've got Indianapolis, Seattle, Carolina, maybe Atlanta as a possibility. Houston, of course, as well. What do you think happens to Baker Mayfield? And do you think a team that needs a quarterback should take a shot on him?
I think a team that needs a quarterback, that makes sense. Be kind of interesting to see where he goes. It would make some sense he might end up in Houston. I don't think that would be good for him. That wouldn't be the best thing there. When I look at teams, I think it'd be interesting if he went to Seattle. They have quite a fan base there. Now he would have to play good, but if things started out good there, their fan base, they got a great fan base. They have a lot of draft picks now. And they have some talent, a wide receiver, no doubt about that. It'll be a little bit of a building thing. So I don't think it would be like, oh, he needs to come in and they need to be in the Super Bowl next year. Now he needs to play well and do his part. But again, the way he rallied people in Cleveland, to me, fitting with the Seattle fan base would kind of make sense. I don't really see him in Indianapolis. New Orleans, I think, could be. Carolina, I don't know. Houston, like I said, I could see them being interested. Don't know if that would be the best for him, but I would assume early this week, we'll hear something.
If Houston wanted him, they would have got him, I think, in the Watson trade. I would assume that was an option for them. So I don't think Houston's where he's going. New Orleans, they're re-signing Jameis Winston. I don't think it makes sense to bring in Mayfield with Jameis Winston there. Seattle's a great spot. You're right on there. It is a phenomenal spot. He will sell tickets. He has a Russell Wilson-esque playing style. He's mobile. He's short. Those kind of things. And I think fans will actually like him better than Russell. Russell is, he's a good quarterback and a good person overall. He just, he doesn't give you much in the interviews and things like that. So Baker Mayfield talks and would be an interesting fit in Seattle. That's a good one. I'd like to see him to go to Indianapolis. I like the coaching staff at Indy and what he could provide. I wonder if there are other teams out there that would have maybe taken a swing at him because I would assume he's going to be pretty cheap. I mean, I don't think you have to give up a whole lot to get Baker Mayfield on your team right now, right?
I would think. Of course, he was the first pick overall at one time, but I wouldn't think maybe it would come up with a real high price tag.
He's not. He's only going to be under contract for one more season, I think, and then so you're going to have to re-sign him. But that Cleveland can't hold that over anybody. Cleveland has absolutely no need for him, other than Deshaun Watson's going to get suspended and he could start for the first whatever games. But Mayfield, I think he's done in Cleveland. I don't think he will play for them. Pittsburgh, they went out and got Mitch Trubisky. I wouldn't think you bring him in. Philadelphia is the other one to watch, Dad. They got Jalen Hurts there, but there's never been this feeling that Philadelphia is sold on Jalen Hurts. So I think Philadelphia and Seattle are definitely interesting teams to watch, especially if a team needs to sell some tickets. What about a team like the New York Giants? Another team who's unsure about their quarterback situation with Daniel Jones, new head coach, and New York would be an interesting place for Baker Mayfield to live.
That'd be very interesting. Well, like you said, Atlanta's interesting too, because with Matt Ryan here, is that what happened with Baker Mayfield? Hey, we're gonna move on. Then all of a sudden, no, we're not. And Atlanta, there was a lot of talk about that. Matt Ryan would fit really well in Indianapolis. To me, that would be a good fit there. And Atlanta, again, that's a place that would probably rally around Baker Mayfield, and he would fit in some ways there. Again, I think talent-wise, even though they've got to rebuild a little bit, I think Seattle's a really good spot. But it'd be interesting to see. Where he goes. He's very charismatic personality. I think fans can attach to him well, his style of play, as long as he's doing well. But last year, again, he was hurt, and there's a lot of talk, should have he played hurt? Did that really, hurt him and the Browns? So we'll see.
Yeah, great point. He gave everything he had to Cleveland, played injured for them, and they just completely trashed him. So it's going to be hard for anybody to really look at the situation and go, as they look forward to playing hurt in the future, they're probably going to be less likely to do so, even though we're moving that direction anyhow. Of course, we need to get to the news that wide receiver traded in the NFL. You know who we're talking about, Robert Woods to Tennessee. Titans get him cheap, by the way. Let's talk about Robert Woods real quick. The Rams didn't need him anymore as they made improvements to their wide receiver core. I'm not a Tennessee guy, a Tennessee fan. The Titans are not. I'm not a Tannehill backer or anything like that. They get rid of Julio Jones, replace him with Robert Woods. They're in a weak division. Does this help Tennessee a lot? Does it help them a little? How does that move work for the Titans?
I would think it helps him a little. If Woods can get back to playing the way he did, then I think he's a good addition, and it'll work well with Brown. And I think it could be a positive pickup for him. I don't know that it puts them in the elite in the NFL by any stretch of the imagination, but and again, if they have the running back for the whole season next year, they're a different team then. So no doubt about it. And Woods probably a good addition.
Yeah, I think so too. Let's talk about Devonte Adams. So Thursday, I'm driving home from Indiana. We went over for a funeral and was driving back, and my son had my phone, and he said, "Dad, somebody just texted you and said the Packers traded away their best fantasy wide receiver." And so I said, "Give me my phone." So I was like, sure enough, it's Devonte Adams. So I immediately call you, Dad, and we have a conversation about it. You were not as negative as I was expecting. So give me your thoughts on Devonte Adams going to Vegas. Start with Vegas, how it helps them, and then talk about Green Bay and the loss.
Well, it should help Vegas. It's going to be interesting to see, will he be as good a receiver without Aaron Rodgers?
Hang on. So you're saying your question is, did Rodgers make Adams, or is Adams as good as we think he is?
Adams is a good receiver. Will Adams be one of the top receivers in the NFL without Aaron Rodgers? We'll see. Now, Derek Carr's good. So, I think there's potential there. They'll have some chemistry quick because they played in college, and he should be a help. But I think there's no doubt if he doesn't just tear it up, the question, that's going to come up. I would have been, I did not want to lose Devonte Adams, but as I looked at everything, I wondered how it was going to work. I think signing Aaron Rodgers, I would rather sign him than I would Devonte Adams if I had to pick between the two. And if you kept Devonte Adams, you were going to lose a lot of other free agents because the money wasn't going to work. And they've already made moves. They've signed guys that their defense is going to be the defense played well at the end of the year. The new coordinator seemed to go well, and now they've got all the major pieces back. Plus, they have a history, I think, outside of Jordan Love. I think they draft well. They've got 4 picks in the top 60. And this draft is not a weak draft, and it's strong in some areas where they can use help. So not only can they get 4 picks, but they can move. They've got some latitude now to move around. They have an extra 4th. I think that will help them from there. Do they need wide receivers? Yes, they do. The thing is, they've signed a couple guys already. I would think they would sign Scantling. And even if they do, they've got some money left for a free agent or two. It just gives them more to work with than had they signed Devonte Adams for a huge contract there.
I cannot say, even in our conversation on the phone the other day, I saw you going the route that Devonte Adams is not great. I didn't see that one coming, Dad. Man, that one took me by surprise. I don't even know what to say, Dad. I think Adams is great. I think that he was definitely helped by Aaron Rodgers as the years progress, but I think where he is now, he is a top 2 wide receiver in the NFL. Hopkins is the guy I put up there with him, and I'm not sure if Hopkins is better or Adams is better. I'd take either one and be incredibly happy with him. You got to remember what Vegas is doing. They brought in Josh McDaniels as their head coach. He will also call the plays. You've got a very good quarterback that is, I think, in the league well respected from media members and fans kind of look down on. So adding Adams there is going to be great for Vegas. They've made other moves in the offseason, defensive moves and things that are going to help them out a lot. They've got a good running back there as well. I think things are going to go well there on offense, especially for Vegas. When he goes to Green Bay, you're right. And the moves they've made since they've traded Adams, it makes a lot of sense. They re-signed defensive guys that they really needed back. They re-signed Bob Tunyon, which most people won't care about. He didn't have a good year last year, but they signed him to a 1-year contract, not spending a whole lot of money on him. They haven't signed Valdez-Scantling yet. I assume they will. I find it hard to believe that they would have traded their number one receiver and left themselves with the cupboard pretty well bare. Alan Lazard is better than people give him credit for. Unless you're a Packer fan, you probably think Alan Lazard is an average number 3 receiver. He's not. He is a solid number 2 wide receiver. So is Valdez-Scantling. Randall Cobb is a 3 receiver, maybe 4 at his age, but he has the trust of his quarterback as well. So they are in desperate need of a number 1 wide receiver. They don't have one. If Valdez-Scantling signs, he is not one. He's had opportunities with Rodgers over the years. He's not developed into a number 1 receiver. Lazard, I think, is probably outside of Randall Cobb the most trusted receiver Aaron Rodgers has. But again, he's not a burner. He's not going to. He does good things. He does the things. I'd compare him to Jordy Nelson, honestly. And maybe he's not as good as Jordy at his peak, but he's in that direction. He's not going to absolutely obliterate you athletically, but he is tall. He makes the jump balls, and the quarterback trusts him. So that's good. You said you'd take Rodgers over Adams for this year, sure. But again, you could have added Adams for 5 or 6 years versus Rodgers for maybe 2 years. But again, the reports say Adams chose Vegas. He did not. He got offered the same or more money from Green Bay, and he said he wanted out. And so obviously, as the Packers have been able to do in recent years, somebody burned bridges there with Devonte Adams. And I don't know. That's probably what hurts the most, is knowing that he wanted to get out, which also makes me think Rodgers is not around for very long, right? I mean, if Adams says, yeah, I'm gone, my guess is Rodgers is there for 1, maybe 2 more years.
I think so. Again, Rodgers has a history of developing wide receivers, making them better. He may look at this as a challenge, depending on who they get, but they may draft a kid and he may say, hey, give me 3 years and maybe he'll be like Devonte Adams was in 3 years. He may not. I don't know. I think he'll definitely be around a couple years, depending again on how they do. They have a lot of other players around them. And again, depending on the draft picks, be real interesting to see if they make a free agent move on the offensive side here coming up. And, we'll see from there. I did not want them to, I did not see it coming. And if the deal would have been, hey, you want to get rid of Devonte Adams? No, you don't want to do that. But once it happened, yeah, I think you can, no use to jump out the window. I don't think it's all over for next year or for the next couple of years as far as that. I like Devonte Adams. I hope he does well with Carr in Vegas. Hope that goes well there. I have no reason to think that it won't. I do think it's legitimate to say, will he be as good a receiver with the Raiders as he was with Green Bay? Not saying he wasn't a good receiver, wasn't saying he wasn't a great receiver, but it'll be interesting from there.
Where do you put Devonte Adams, ranking him with other receivers in the NFL for next season?
I'd have to look at everybody, but he beats top 2 or 3. I think no doubt about that, based on what he's been doing, from there. I think that's for true.
Okay. Well, yeah, a little taken by your takes tonight. With I wasn't ready for that one. All right, so we'll see what happens as free agency continues. We have our draft previews coming up starting in April. As we go through the divisions and look at different draft options, go through the draft order, I guess, with that as well. Another team that's made some big moves this offseason is Cincinnati, Dan. announced this weekend they signed La'el Collins, the Dallas Cowboy offensive tackle. He's a third offensive lineman they've signed here in the offseason. Joe Burrow invited all of the new signees, their girlfriends or wives, and including La'el Collins, over to his house for dinner on Saturday night. Had them over and wined and dined them. Pretty impressive move from old Joe Burrow, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, Joe Burrow knows what he's doing. There's no doubt about that. I think he's got leadership. If he keeps his head on straight, which I think there's a good chance that he will. He knows how to rally people, and I think it's important for Cincinnati to build on what they had. There's going to be an incredible amount of optimism around here, no doubt about it. I mean, we've been hearing, okay, the Reds are giving up, but hey, we've got the Bengals, and you never heard of people talk about the Bengals, but now everybody's ready to go. This thing with Cleveland and Deshaun Watson, that's going to be very, very interesting. Because you'll have Bengal fans being very vocal and the Browns fans are already very vocal. So that'll make for interesting times around here, no doubt about it. But Joe Burrow knows what he's doing. There's no doubt about that. That's funny too. When you talk about wide receivers, where does Jamar Chase look in this? He's pretty good. I mean, I wouldn't say he's quite at their category yet with Adams and Hill and Hopkins, but one more year here, he's pretty good.
Yeah, another year of it, sure. He's only done it for 1 year, so let's give the defenses a chance to adjust and see what happens in year number 2. He looks to be the part. He looks to be a top 5, 6 wide receiver in the NFL. You got to remember Cooper Kupp's up there as well. So there's guys up there. But we'll see what he does in year number 2. You mentioned it before we came on air. The AFC North has gotten pretty fun. You've got Cleveland, who's making their additions. Baltimore, what will they be next year? Will Lamar Jackson be healthy? How will they play? Didn't go well this year. And then Pittsburgh added Mitch Trubisky, and they've got Najee Harris. What are they going to do in the draft? They lose Juju Smith-Schuster, which was not surprising, and honestly, I don't think it hurts them that much. But they're going to have to improve in some areas too. But the AFC North could be a pretty fun conference here for the next several years.
Yes, I think so. And like I said, if we're still seeing where Baltimore's going to be, but you have potential. You've got some real interesting, like I said, quarterbacks there for sure. So, like I said, depending on what Trubinsky does, but that's going to be a good division. I think with what's happening, and like I said, the draft is going to be interesting, going to make teams stronger. Now, when you draft offensive linemen, they're not going to make a splash, in the preseason from there, but it'll help teams be very solid.
Yeah. Juju went to Kansas City, signing there. So now they got Tyreek. They've got Juju on the other side. That's where Juju belongs as the number 2 receiver. He's a good number 2 receiver. He's not a number 1 receiver. He's proven that over the years. In Pittsburgh, like I said, they got Claypool, they got Johnson still. They've got some decent guys there, and I don't think they're gonna miss Juju at all from there as well. Any other NFL topics you want to hit before we move on?
No, like I said, boy, a lot of things keep happening in the NFL, and I assume there'll still be a little bit more of that. But before now, everything will, before long, the schedule will come out, so that'll be interesting discussion, and then the draft.
Yeah, I'm excited to dive into the draft. Last year we had a lot of draft coverage, and I think we covered it really well. I know I'm biased, but I thought we had it really, really good last year. So working on that and looking forward to that as well. The next big thing that we're doing, Dad, is Major League Baseball preview. We'll be going through the divisions starting that next week and working on those. And Major League Baseball has had its fair share of stories as well. Freddie Freeman signs with the Dodgers. The rich just get richer. Castellanos, who you were worried about because he's on your fantasy baseball team, he signs with the Phillies. Did you kept Castellanos, didn't you, in the keeper league?
Yes. Yeah. I did, and I think that's a good move. I think I'm going to be in good shape with him at Philly, no doubt about it.
Have you reached out to your Philly source yet about Castellanos?
I have not, because he was doing a lot with March Madness, but I figure on the next day or so I'll get a hold of him and see how that goes. So,
So we'll come back to Philadelphia then. Carlos Correa signs in Minnesota. It's basically a 1-year deal. It's a 3-year deal, but he's got the opt-out options after next season. So, but a good signing for Minnesota. And then Trevor Story goes to Boston. Once Correa signed, that would left basically Story as the only shortstop available worth signing at the moment. He goes to Boston, Dad. I think Story bumps up in fantasy value immediately with signing in Boston, and it'll be interesting to see where how he plays there in Boston. I think Trevor Story has gotten kind of the short end of the stick here the last couple of years, and I think he'll kind of revive himself there in Boston. What do you think?
yes, I think so. I think when I saw that, I thought that's a really good move. I mean, big move for Boston. They surprised people some last year, and I think that'll definitely, I'm sure, add excitement with the fan base. But yeah, I think he should do well, and I think you said revive his career would be true. I think all these free agent moves have been good. For the teams from there, and should create a lot of interest. Definitely, looking at a preseason, we'll have fun reviewing them here in the next couple of weeks. So,
yeah, there was some rumor that San Francisco was in on him. San Francisco also missed out on Chris Bryant, who finished the season in San Francisco. He signs a massive deal with the Rockies. I mean, a massive deal with the Rockies. The Rockies just don't look good. I have to look at their roster to see where it's all shaken out, but I believe they lost pitching this offseason. Of course, Trevor Story gone as well. And my dogs are having fun upstairs. But Chris Bryant in Colorado, what's he going to do there?
Well, he's going to hit a lot of home runs. There's no doubt about that. I heard some talk about that on Friday, and they said basically he's decided he wants to hit home runs and make a lot of money, and not necessarily worry about winning a World Series. And that may very well be true. Now, sometimes that doesn't always work as well as it you think it's going to. And I don't know much about the Rockies and their front office. Are they going to try to build around him? Are they going to try to, anything there? But yeah, he got quite the deal. He definitely got paid. And, everybody that plays there in Colorado a lot, you've got a good chance for the long ball. And so Bryant, definitely will continue to be a hot commodity in fantasy, I would think.
Yeah, and it's going to work out for Chris Bryant no matter what, because he's got enough money to retire 4 times, 5 times, 6 times over. So he'll be just fine no matter what happens. He kind of goes Carmelo Anthony, going for the money over the championship. So congratulations, Chris Bryant, on your new contract from there. Like I said, Dad, we're going to start our Major League Baseball preview. We'll do the East divisions next Monday. We'll start it next Monday. We'll look through the AL and the NL East, and the AL East, by the way, is reloaded tremendously. Toronto, New York, Boston, Tampa especially. But we'll talk about all that next Monday, and we'll go through our MLB preview episodes over the next 3 episodes, starting Monday, and then the Friday episode, and then the following Monday episode as well. Dad, anything else Major League Baseball or other sports oriented? We do got to talk about one thing, and I didn't give you the heads up on this, so I apologize. But I know your thoughts on it. I know your thoughts on it, and so you don't have to share your opinion if you don't want to. Leah Thomas, I think is what they call the transgender swimmer who won the women's medals and championship in the NCAA, was celebrated as the first transgender athlete to win a championship. But I continue just to come back to this simple point. We are trying in society to do better at how we treat females, as over the years there have been a lot of chauvinistic issues and different things like that, pay issues, whatever it may be. And now we're trying to celebrate a guy winning a girls' sport. And I just don't get it. I don't understand why people are so, I don't know, I'm not on that end of the spectrum as far as political views and things like that anyhow. But seriously, it's a guy beating girls in a girls' sport, and we're supposed to celebrate it. It doesn't make any sense. I'm not going to celebrate it. I think it's stupid. I don't understand why we can, out of one side of our mouth, say we need to treat women better and equally and those kinds of things. And then on the other side of the mouth say it's okay for a guy to compete in girl sports. Listen, there's just no place for it. They need to have their own category, let them compete against each other. At the end of the day, it's just wrong. Plain and simple, it's wrong. And I'm just talking about from a pure athletic fairness of competition standpoint. And I'm not going to get into the other side of the argument. It's just plain wrong. And I think it's despicable that it's been allowed to happen. And I hope that they'll look back on it and realize how stupid it is, and they'll make the necessary changes. Any comments, Dad?
Well, I know. I mean, I agree with you. I think obviously this is not been an athletic thing. This is a political thing, and and that's where it's headed. I mean, this is not. You're right. There's been things that are wrong about women and fairness in sports, but this has nothing to do with that. This doesn't help. I wouldn't say where this helps. Oh, this is a great move or great help for women's sports, because that's not what this is. This is just a group that's gotten in here and got more publicity about it, and I don't think it's positive at all. So I'm glad we get done with this, and we'll see if it raises its ugly head again somewhere else, which it probably will.
A literal ugly head, but yes, you're right. Okay. Well, there you go. There's a good ending point, Dad. March Madness rolls on. We'll talk more about that on our Friday episode. This Wednesday, tune into the Sports Stove Local Hour. We're talking with an assistant basketball coach from EKU women's basketball team, Abby Owings. She has been put on the best 30 under 30 coaches list. And so we'll be talking with her, and we're supposed to talk with EKU pitching closer, Will Bryan as well. We're still working on nailing that down. But that's on Wednesday's Local Hour edition. And then Friday, we'll be back to talk all things basketball, football, sports news related, all those kinds of things as well. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Sports Stove. And make sure you like, share, subscribe, review the podcast as well. All right. Thank you so much for tuning in to today's Sports Stove podcast. Until next time, we'll see you